Hello everyone and welcome to Ferrari's quest to regain Formula One dominance. We represent Outliers Analytics Consulting Group, a startup that offers sports analytics services to Formula One racing teams. This season, our services have been retained by Formula One's last season's sixth place constructor and former champion Scuderia Ferrari, SPA, the racing division of luxury Italian auto manufacturer Ferrari, and the racing team that competes in Formula One racing. But first, a little background on Ferrari. Scuderia Ferrari is the oldest surviving and most successful Formula One team, having competed in every world championship since 1950 Formula One season. Formula One has been a cornerstone of Ferrari's marketing strategy, equating Formula One dominance with their image as a premier performance car manufacturer. Obviously, the inability of Ferrari to be in the leaderboard has been deemed a major threat to the very survival of the company, and that is where we come in. We have been hired by Ferrari to take a look at the data for the past 50 years and come up with a series of analysis and recommendations to get Ferrari back into the leaderboard. So once we had our data identified and the platforms we were going to use, we decided that the best way to run through this data was to take Ferrari's last season performance in 4 key areas and compare them to the aggregated average performance for the top 3 teams every season in the past 15 years. We decided to analyze the following 4 metrics. First of all, pit stop performance. The number of pit stops speaks to the quality and readiness of the race car, as well as the time per pit stop actually reflects the severity of malfunctions and performance of the pit stop group. Then we decided to analyze qualifying round performance, since our research determined that there is a correlation between the position in the qualifying round and the ending position in each circuit. Obviously, we couldn't leave driver performance out, and we have focused on analyzing Charles Leclerc's performance compared to the other drivers and the other constructor to determine if his contract should be renewed. And finally, we analyzed which circuits Ferrari might be having trouble in the past season. And now for the technical analysis, let me pass you on to Ahmed.
Thanks, Juan, for this great introduction to the team. Now I'll just go a little bit deeper on the notebook. Bear with me, guys, it might be a little bit technical, but at the end you will understand the whole picture when you see the summary table. It's a really nice summary table. We as a team are very proud that we came up with this one. The table, the notebook is structured in a way that we start by setting up the Spark environment. Then we read, using data source APIs, we read the data frame, we do some preparation and data analysis, and finally we answer some business questions that Juan has already introduced you to around Ferrari performance and the top 3 teams' performance in the past 15 years. So let's go a little bit further. We start, as I said, we start by setting up the Spark environment, nothing fancy. Now we read the 13 data sets, 13 CSV files in this data set basically. After that, we do some discovery on those data sets. We see what are the different columns, which columns are useful for us, which are not, to answer our business questions. And finally, after we analyzed all tables, we started that we wanted to start with this table, results. Okay, remove some of the columns that we don't need. For example, position string, position text, and position order are all the same, but position order is integer, so we decided to use this one only. Laps we didn't need in our analysis, so we removed them, and a couple of others. And join that table based on the keys here, okay, to other tables. So what we did actually 8 joins. For this is 7 joins, 8 tables. So we used 8 of the CSVs file, original 15 CSVs, 5 of them at this stage we didn't use, but a couple of them we had to use later. So just typical joins, usually lift joins to keep, so lift joins basically to keep the results stable, and add to it whatever coming from the races table, for example, in this case. And then we joined both of these to constructors, and so on until we got our nice table that I'll show you in a minute. Where is the final one? This is the final one. So this is the schema of the final table with, so this is the result of 7 joins, 8 tables that we did. We got this schema, and all of those columns are needed for our analysis. So you will see the analysis in a minute. And we are just showing the first row to make sure that everything is working fine. We have 29,000 rows for the top 3 winners data for the past 15 years, basically. After that, basically, we wanted to identify what are the top 3 winners in the past 15 years. So basically, we filtered per year, group them per year, and we got the maximum race ID, basically, maximum race ID to identify what is the race, the last race in each season. After that, okay, we filter based on this race ID, driver race ID, as you can see. We do a join to get basically the 15 years data. We got 320 rows, which is good. And later on, we do some selects to get the constructors that we need. And as you can see, we got number 1. Here is the condition: 1, 2, or 3. So we got the number 1, 2, 3 in each season for the past 15 years. We needed the constructor IDs, which is the team ID, to filter based on that to get the last top 3 DF, what we call it, which has the data for only the top 3 teams each year for the past 15 years. Some data analysis, we look into the schemas, we look at some rows, columns, we check for nulls at one point of time. Yeah, as you can see, we check for nulls. By the way, we can see those nulls, we know about them. And we see that they were not recorded in the original table, but it didn't affect our analysis because they were for the lower standing teams, and we didn't want to go through that. Okay, now here where we are analyzing Ferrari actual performance in season 2020. Okay, the first thing we did is to determine the standings of Ferrari. Okay, the average standing per circuit, for example. So this is only for the last race. And now the circuit position. So basically we filtered by year ID, constructor ID, and group by circuit name. So we know the average Ferrari position in each circuit for 2020. Okay, and as you can see, we can here where Juan probably mentioned that we got a leap in these circuits. They are, Ferrari is not performing well at all in these circuits. Those are a bit like in one cluster, and those are in the good cluster, but these are really bad. Okay, so this is one of the recommendations that Juan will mention to you. And the average position for Ferrari for 2020 is 10.59. Then we go into the qualifying position, similar way of filtering, okay, and getting the average. The number of pit stops. Here we are not only grouping by circuit name, we are grouping also by driver ID to get the right sum for pit stops. Okay, and then we got the average pit stops. Now, finally, at the end of the Ferrari analysis, we came up with this nice table, okay, where we get the average qualifying position, the average pit stops, and these will be the basis. These statistics will be the basis for our analysis that we will come up with later. Then we did the driver analysis, which is similar to the Ferrari team analysis, except that we are looking at again 2020. Here we are looking at driver name and surname instead of just the circuit, and it will be average position we'll get, as you can see. Okay, we'll get the number of pit stops and average pit stops times, and we'll end up basically with a very similar manually created table, similar to the one we did for Ferrari. And then we did exactly the same for the top 3 teams. Okay, the same analysis, where we'll end up with a very similar table to the one we have with the driver and Ferrari. And finally, okay, the proud of our project is this table, which summarizes everything, all our findings in one table. As you can see, it is manually created. It required us so many joins, so many queries, and a lot of understanding of the data set to create this summary table that we are using as the basis for a recommendation that Juan will take you through in a minute. And this is just the circuits again for Ferrari. So thanks for listening, and back to you, Juan.
Thank you, Ahmed, for that great explanation of the technical work that you guys did, and thank you for that beautiful summary table that you provided us, where we have all the information that we need to actually come up with our recommendations. So basically, from the information that we have determined that the average number of pit stops Ferrari is doing is lower than the average number of pit stops from all the other constructors, the top 3 constructors, in the past 15 seasons. So our car is pretty good. So we will have to recommend to continue with our technical equipment program, which is generating above average results. Then we move to the pit stop time. From the pit stop time, we have determined that the pit stop crew has to increase training and decrease race car turnover, and obviously study ways to optimize the pit stop experience overall. Now we move on to circuit performance. Even though the team is consistently underperforming in most circuits, we recommend that you increase preparation and implement changes to the race strategy. Now we're going to move into the other parts of the assessment. Qualifying run performance. Our analysis shows that at 10.44 average qualifying position, Ferrari is actually doubling the top 3 average, which is 5.12. And this is one of the major issues keeping us from the leaderboard. We recommend Ferrari give special attention to improving qualifying placement. And finally, we move to driver performance, which was the toughest one. We found through our analysis that even though Charles Leclerc has slightly outperformed our team's average ending position, he's actually ended in a worse position when compared to his starting qualifying position. That would be his placement 9.88 versus 6.25, which is the minimum needed to be in the leaderboard. So, unfortunately, the recommendation was to replace Leclerc and hire a new driver. We would like to thank you for being here today, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.